Hi, everybody. Looks like the mic is working. Thanks. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks for the invitation to speak here today. We're very excited to tell our story where we have the chance at Enviva, and we are a big believer in the southern forests, and so we're just thrilled to be part of this event. I thought I would just take a few minutes today to give you an overview of who we are at Enviva and what our business is, and in particular, the markets that we're serving and the way that we interact with the southern forest landscape and where we see this business in terms of biomass for energy, where we see that going over the next few years and beyond. I'm always told to say that please don't make any investment decisions on what I tell you here today. These are all forward-looking statements, just sort of looking ahead. And here's just a short overview of what I hope to touch on, which is essentially provide a little bit of background on Enviva, our business model, our corporate footprint, and how we're structured as a company, and then really describe where we sit in both the global energy markets and then more regionally in the southern forest markets, and because we're at the interface of both of those, and it's a really exciting time for both of them as well. These are some wood pellets, and really, essentially at Enviva, we're the manufacturer of wood pellets. We're the largest in the world, and we're growing quickly. And our business is really based on ensuring that the wood fiber that we secure to produce our pellets is sustainably sourced, and that we take care of the forest, that they're in a better condition, since we've arrived in the forest than before we arrived, and that we can make a consistent fuel product for our customers. A little snapshot. We have the capacity today to produce about 3 million tons per year of wood pellets. We're located exclusively in the southeast U.S. I'll say a little bit more about that in a bit. We're a global energy company, essentially. We supply the global energy markets, and the geographies in which we participate are growing year by year. We have a pretty interesting business model when it comes to biomass and wood pellets for energy, which has historically been a regional market where the supplies and the demand for biomass have historically been quite close in proximity. And the business that we've been leading the development of is really an extension of that business model. We are bringing scale to the biomass business and reach. And we've done a few things to accomplish that. One, by bringing a significant amount of capital into the industry to build out a supply chain. We've taken a certain approach to the design and operation of our facilities, where they're standardized at a certain scale. It's build and copy, so we can replicate our learnings across our supply chain. And we've taken ownership of various parts of our supply chain, from the pellet manufacturing facilities all the way through to port terminals. And that allows us both to capture economies of scale, to bring down costs, and to control the logistics, which, when it comes to moving biomass and fuel products around the world, are key to controlling our costs and to offering our customers a valuable product that they can rely on. We are growing quite quickly. As I said, we have about 3 million tons per year capacity currently, and we see that doubling in our development pipeline in the next probably 2 to 4 years. This says a little bit more about the industry itself. I've already touched on how we have this build and copy approach, but you can see here how Enviva sits against some of the other large manufacturers of biomass globally. We have 8 facilities currently with about 3 million tons per year capacity. By this time next year, we'll have brought online our newest facility that's currently under construction, and will be over 4 million tons per year of capacity, with other plants behind that in the development pipeline. And what you see if you look at this chart is that it's a fairly small business still in terms of large players in the market. There are a number of pellet facilities that have pellet facility owners who might have one plant in their portfolio or 2 plants in their portfolio with a small overall capacity, but just a few. There are just a few companies that have really taken this business model of really modernizing and expanding the supply chain to really try to serve the global markets. And that's when I say we're just at the beginning here of this industry, that's what I mean. We're going to see a lot more growth in this space, probably some more consolidation, and a lot more capital invested into the biomass supply chain because the product is in very high demand, which I'll talk about in a little more detail soon. When you look at our footprint, as I said, we serve the global marketplace, but we are focused exclusively in the Southeast right now. You can see here a map that shows where our facilities are. They span from Southern Virginia all the way through Mississippi. We own 8 plants. We own and operate 8 plants right now, and we have 4 ports. We own and operate 2 deep water ports on the Atlantic coast, one in Chesapeake, Virginia, and the other in Wilmington, North Carolina, and then we have arrangements through terminal leasing, et cetera, 2 Gulf Coast ports in Panama City and in Mobile. We are developing a 5th deep water port in the Gulf, in the Port of Pascagoula, which we're really excited about, and that should be opening in the next few years, I think, sort of 2020 timeframe. And we have a robust development pipeline that supports these facilities, and in particular, our new port. We'll be building some pellet facilities around that. When you think about the business that we're serving, we should talk about the markets. What role is biomass playing in the energy markets? This is the picture of the largest biomass facility in the world, which is in the UK. It's the Drax plant, where they have been converting systematically their coal boilers. There's 645 megawatt coal units. There are 6 on site. They have been converting them from coal to biomass, and now they've converted 4 entirely. And that plant consumes, I want to say, probably around 7 or 8 million tons per year of wood pellets on its own. Biomass is transitioning to a global fuel. And a commodity fuel. And the current market that serves is really as a coal replacement. That's the first market. There are others that we see on the horizon, but the real value proposition today in the energy sector is displacing coal with another solid fuel that's a renewable fuel, not a fossil fuel. And you can see here in the table how the energy contents and some of the other characteristics of the fuel compare to coal. And really the point to take away here is that it's a direct replacement. You have to do very minor modifications to a boiler to switch out the fuel. This is very convenient to the owners and operators of coal plants where those facilities are either system critical, or they're not entirely paid off, or they're in locations where it's very difficult to build new coal plants, or to build new power plants at all, or where there is a strong need for a reliable or dispatchable source of low-carbon energy to complement wind and solar. And so we see these markets in various parts of the world, primarily in Europe, and that's where our main customers are right now. And the chart here, which is very difficult to read, I apologize for that, but you see a lot of lines that are moving up and down. Those are fuel prices of fossil fuels like natural gas, liquid propane gas, oil, and other fuel products. But that green line along the bottom is the price of pulpwood in the Southeast U.S. And it shows that really, when it comes to fuel volatility and fuel price predictability, really it's hard to beat biomass on that front, which is another valuable thing to our customers. One of the other key characteristics of biomass, of course, is its carbon footprint. It costs more to buy and to utilize wood pellets than it does to buy and to utilize coal. And so what is a customer getting for that price premium. There are a few things, but first and foremost, it's really a reduction in the carbon footprint of the facility. And while there is some complexity around how one would calculate the carbon footprint of biomass, because of course you still are burning a carbon product, there still is CO2 that's coming out of the stack of these facilities. Generally speaking, the main regulatory bodies or scientific bodies around the world are coalescing around an approach and a framework for the treatment of biogenic carbon in carbon accounting programs that is very favorable to the use of biomass. In the European Union, here in the US with the EPA, the United Nations have all taken a similar view on the very strong CO2 benefits from the use of biomass. And that's really the foundation of the business from a value perspective. And where are we seeing the markets today globally? It's really in two key regions, Europe and in Asia. And Europe has really been the leader in this. I already mentioned the UK. They have really kick-started this global biomass industry. There are a number of projects in the UK, but now there are other parts of Europe that are really moving in this direction. Denmark has made a commitment to move entirely off of coal, and we're a large supplier to the thermal stations in Denmark that are switching away from coal to biomass for firm power generation and also district heating, because many of their cities rely on central station, what used to be coal plants, but now are biomass plants to heat their homes and provide heat and steam to industrial facilities. In addition to Europe, there is an enormous amount of growth right now in Asia, in particular in South Korea and, more importantly, Japan. Japan has a very aggressive renewable, subsidy framework in place for the development of biomass markets in the power sector, particularly since they've been retiring nuclear facilities, as you may know. And we see through the projections from the Japanese government and also third parties and our own discussions with the large utilities in Japan that the market for biomass in Japan by the end of the next decade will be larger than Europe's. So we are seeing, and this is just, we're seeing an enormous amount of growth out here and interest and activity in our product, going forward that will be on top of the continued business that we're seeing in Europe. And again, really the value proposition here is taking existing infrastructure, existing coal plants, and swapping out the fuel so you can keep those facilities running, the people that are employed at those plants in their jobs, the utilization of the infrastructure that's built around these facilities, but switch out the fuel from fossil fuel to a renewable fuel and have that complementary energy that can be injected into the system to complement wind and solar and other weather-dependent renewables. And you can see here that just last year in Europe, that black line is coal generation and the wedges underneath are renewable generation. For the first time in the EU, we see renewables actually producing more energy than coal in the EU, and biomass was a very large part of that story and continues to be. One of the other interesting things about biomass is that while there is this global sort of utility industry commoditized fuel market that is developing for the large industrial users, we do also continue to see regional markets based on heating demand. And the wood pellets that we produce and others produce can really participate in both of those markets. And so what we will be doing and what we think will happen over time is that these markets will start to coalesce and come together. But both of them are growing, and they're both quite large. And one of the things that's really interesting when you look at this chart, particularly on the industrial side, is that Europe and Asia are large and are predicted to continue to grow, North American markets for biomass are currently almost non-existent, not for wood pellets, for sort of the industrialized fuel. And if you look at the infrastructure we have in place across North America and the amount of coal plants that are currently still in use but are threatened due to economic pressures or environmental pressures, it wouldn't take much to get some of the U.S. or other North American facilities to start to use biomass in the same way that we've seen in Europe or Japan, and that would just fundamentally change this chart even more, so even more growth. And so that's not even considered here, but we at Enviva see this as an opportunity. This really talks more about kind of what's happening going forward in Europe. They've just gone through a new planning stage for the next decade of their renewable energy programs and goals, and they're getting more tight on the restrictions for CO2 are getting tighter. The requirements for renewable energy are getting stronger, and so the markets for biomass will continue to grow in Europe and elsewhere. That's just really kind of locked in at this point. And this is all based on all of this growth and all the work that Enviva is doing to globalize the biomass industry is really based on the feedstock, the forest, the supply source, no matter where you are. And with Enviva, that's in the Southeast. And so what are we doing in the Southeast, where we're based, to source the feedstock and to ensure the sustainability of our product, because that's really what everything depends upon for our business. And as I don't have to tell anyone here in this room, the U.S. forest landscape is robust, it's healthy, and it's growing. And those are just great conditions for our business. If you look at pulpwood pricing, as I have here on the left side of the chart, you can see both with hardwood and softwood, it's very stable. That's a great precondition for our business. And then, well, I apologize, the second part of that chart didn't show up, but it basically just shows that there's a positive growth to drain ratio in terms of growth of the forests versus what gets taken out every year in harvest, which is really fundamental to the sustainability of our business. We need to deliver to our customers in regulated markets that want a premium product for their energy, and we have to demonstrate to their regulators in Europe, in Denmark, in Belgium, in the UK, that our supply chain is operating in a way where the forests are stable in inventory, in carbon stocks, or increasing. So we have to make sure that that's the case from all the suppliers that we work with, and that is the case in the Southeast, and that's what that chart was meant to show. I'm not sure what happened there. So how do we demonstrate this? It's through certification programs. It's through programs that we have in place at Enviva, and it's through transparency. To build trust with our stakeholders, with our customers, and with our regulators. When it comes to certification, we are involved in basically all the certification programs that you're familiar with or you can think of when it comes to this supply chain. Really, there are some that are more historical, and when it comes to the utility-grade pellet business, the sustainable biomass program is really where the industry is headed, and we're on the board of that. Of that certification program. We're deeply involved in how that works, and we have all of our facilities and all of our supply chain really certified to those standards. When I say care for the forest landscape, this is really going above and beyond what the certifications require and call for to ensure that we are good neighbors and good citizens in the communities in the forest in which we operate. And one of the things that we've done to demonstrate this commitment is we set up a conservation fund where we don't control harvest at Enviva. We don't own our own timber resources. We're just a purchaser of fiber, but but we have very strict criteria around what we're willing to buy and what we won't buy based on sustainability, and other metrics. But there are circumstances where we will come across a tract of land that's scheduled, that's privately owned and scheduled for a harvest, that we determine, this is not a harvest we want to be a part of because it has a high conservation value, or it has, a sensitive ecosystem, or some other factors there. But we don't control whether or not that landowner will do the harvest. So we've set up a fund that's managed by a third party that will go in and say, all right, if we're not willing to buy the fiber because we don't believe this tract should be harvested, we will pass that along to our conservation fund, and they will work to protect that land, to put it in an easement or to work with the landowner so it never gets harvested. And that's, we've got about a $5 million fund right now that's in place. That money really leverages some other resources that are out there. So the amount of land that's been conserved so far is really quite striking, and it's really a great success story. So we are looking at expanding this program, across our portfolio. And then there's transparency. We want to make sure that we're a trusted, part of the industry. And so what we've done is we've set up what we call a track and trace program, where we know the GPS coordinates of all the fiber, of the source of all the fiber that we purchase, full stop. And we collect this information and we put it on our website so it can be seen by everybody. And so what this does is it really helps to engage with our stakeholders who are worried about the forest health and what tracts are being harvested or not being harvested. We just put it all out there so everybody can see. And to our knowledge, it's one of the most comprehensive programs in the industry, not just in the biomass space, but across the forest markets products industry in terms of sourcing. And this is just a little bit of data that shows where we get our source material: hardwood, softwood, greenwood chips, pulpwood, et cetera, and the average age of our of the fiber that we purchase. You can find all this on our website. And as I said, this is really just the beginning of what we see as a growing global market for the supply chain, the type of supply chain that we're building out at Enviva. Coal displacement is an enormous opportunity and an enormous global market for coal displacement. But there are many other applications beyond coal displacement that we see, and we're already starting to participate in. Combined heat and power, where you just get a much more efficient utilization of the resource, and we're seeing that more and more in places like the European Union, where they want to get more for less, which is different than a coal plant. And we're in conversations with other industrial users or municipalities that have a need or an interest in exploring those CHP business models. Industrial steam, and then of course the more advanced applications. I think probably a few more years out from where we are today, but the supply chain based on cellulose from the fiber can really be applied in any number of different ways, from packaging to chemicals to fuels. And if you look at what's happening in those technology arenas right now, you should be pretty optimistic that we're going to be seeing some really interesting applications and new markets for biomass in the years ahead. That's really, I think, a snapshot of what we're doing. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.